In episode 4 of our Sauces and Soup series, I showed you how to make a traditional Beurre Blanc that is incredibly unstable just by nature. Now here I'm going to be demonstrating how to make a stabilized Beurre Blanc or butter emulsion. And here I'm just going to start with some sliced shallots and some lemon because I want to have a lemon flavored Beurre Blanc. And this is going to be my water base, and this is what you call your continuous phase for your emulsion. We have a whole video that will be linked in the show notes that talks about this. But suffice to say that this can be any sort of water-based liquid that you like. That can be any flavor that you like. And the cool thing is it can be in any proportion that you like. You can have as much or as little water base as you would like. Now here, I'm going to place the water base, which is my white wine, lemon juice, and shallots on the stove and bring to a simmer. And while I'm waiting for that to heat up, I'm just going to simply take some cold butter out of the fridge and dice into large chunks or some cubes. And that cold butter is just going to make the emulsification process a little more forgiving. Now, once your water base has come to a simmer, you're going to take that and add it into a blender. And since I'm using citrus in the form of lemon juice, I like to have a little bit of extra fresh lemon juice squeezed in right before the emulsification process. But it is important that your water base is nice and hot, close to that simmering point, because the butter will cool it down as it emulsifies in and it could seize your blender. Now I'm going to season with just a little bit of kosher salt and a tiny bit of sugar, and the sugar is just there to counterbalance the lemon and the acidity, not to actually make it sweet. Now here I'm going to add my hydrocolloid and my stabilizer, which is xanthan gum. And xanthan gum needs some shearing power, but it can hydrate in both hot and cold water. So to hydrate it, I'm going to drop it directly into the center of this vortex that's being created by the spinning blade of my blender. Now, I don't measure this because just a little tiny tablespoon, or not even a teaspoon, probably a quarter of a teaspoon will be enough to emulsify this entire batch in the blender. So I just give a little sprinkle, and then I start to drop in my whole chunks of butter. And as it becomes thicker, I'm going to continue to turn that blender blade up until I finally hit the highest speed. And you'll notice that that vortex hole is becoming smaller and smaller. The width will become smaller and smaller as the Beurre Blanc becomes thicker. And this is how you know the thickness. Now here, I have a perfect amount that I know of water and butter ratio for flavor. So I'm going to add more xanthan gum to slightly thicken it more, because I want a thicker viscosity, but if I add more butter, I run the risk of deadening the flavors of my water base, which is the white wine and the lemon juice. Now, when you turn it off, you should see this little glub glub, just like that, where the bubbles kind of percolate up to the top, and this shows that you have a nice, stable emulsion. Now, I'm going to pour this through a chinois, and that's just to make sure that I have a nice, fine consistency. And I'm going to reserve this over a double boiler, where I'm going to fit this bain-marie into a second bain-marie that has a little bit of water in it, and I'll keep this covered over a low flame for dinner service. And you'll notice that this consistency, I have complete control over it. If I wanted to, I can make it thicker by adding more xanthan gum or more butter, or I can thin it out by adding more of my water base. But what makes xanthan gum such a great stabilizer for your emulsifications is the fact that it adds no perceptible flavor, and it's shear thinning, which means it's thicker at rest, which makes the emulsification extremely stable. Now, for more in-depth information on this technique and the underlying science behind it, check out the links in our episode show notes found at stellaculinary.com/SNS6.